We'll go ahead and call the county commission meeting to order. All rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Donna, please call the roll.
Commissioner Butch Schleier.
Present.
Chair, Commissioner Dean Hazelhorse.
Present.
Commissioner Destin Roth.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Any changes to the order of business this evening? Any executive sessions, Phil? None. Commissioners all good?
Yeah.
Okay. Prior minutes. Phil had some corrections on, I think it was July 8th meeting, but they look fine. Anything from you guys?
Nope. Everything looked fine.
Stand approved as presented. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G as presented.
I second that.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Issues from persons not on the order of business this evening. Do we have anyone? Introduction of new employees.
Evening, Commissioners. Mason Reuter, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Wanted to bring before you our new employee, the environmental technician, Justin Craig. We hired him July 8th. He started. He's been doing really well. We're excited to have him on, so I figured have him come say hi.
Good evening. Just want to say thanks for the opportunity and look forward to working with you all.
Yep. Thanks
Thanks,
for being
Justin.
on board
Thank you,
with us. Thank you. Next item, the winning commissioner's cookie jar from the 2019 Ellis County Fair.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Teresa Mice, and I just wanted to present the winning cookie jar for the 2019 Ellis County Fair Commissioner's Cookie Jar. And thanks to Donna for taking care of them and getting them all on the plates for you tonight.
Yep, you bet.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next item, county resolution on private vehicle towing. Lisa Boyd. I guess we don't have a Lisa Boyd, so we will move on. Ambulance purchase. Carrie McHugh, Health Services Director.
Good evening, Commissioners, County Administrator. Commissioner Hazelhorse, you'll remember we've started this process back in the end of the year last year when I asked for permission to send this packet out, which you received, and it's our bid packet, and it is our specs that we've used for a number of years to purchase 2 ambulances. The 2 that we are replacing in the fleet are a 2003 Type 3 Ford MedTech that has approximately 150,000 miles, which was originally scheduled to be replaced in 2013. The second unit that we're looking at replacing is a 2010 that also has in the 150,000 mile region. It's a 2010 Chevy MedTech, and it was scheduled to be replaced last year. We have moved those purchases back to get more mileage and more use out of those vehicles, and we've gone to the end of really those vehicles' useful life. While they have 150,000 miles on it, you pretty much have to double that mileage in the fact that they set and idle for extended periods of time. So they have a lot more mileage, or excuse me, a lot more wear and tear on those engines than what the normal vehicle that says it has 150,000 miles on it. Our fleet currently of 7 ambulances has almost half of those vehicles have over 100,000 miles. So we're trying to get as much mileage out of each vehicle as we can. So we sent this packet out, and as I said, it's our specs that we've used for many years. And we got these 3 bids back. And I tried to summarize those in your packet in this document. 3 of those 3 vendors, one was American Response Vehicles out of Columbia, Missouri. They were for $360,406. They had 29 original exceptions to the request for proposal. They did send us a letter and found a way to comply with 2, so they were down to 27 exceptions. All of those repairs and service would be done out of Columbia, Missouri, and they have a 120 to 180 day delivery time. The second, which is Osage Ambulance out of Jefferson City, Missouri, had 6 exceptions. Their total was $373,080. And they have a service rep in Salina, so we would be getting service out of Salina much quicker and much better. They also, what makes them also attractive is that they have a demo that's coming off the line that we can put back onto the line just briefly and get a couple modifications to that demo and come really close to our specs. So that cost, I believe, will actually be a little below that 373 because of that demo. And that demo comes off the line mid-August. So within 45 days, we can have the first of the 2. And as you can see, they're a 300-day out build. Now, 2 things, 2 reasons for that. Number one, we have a $1,000 a week phrase or clause in our specs. So if they don't meet their build time, it's $1,000 a week. So they put the longest time they can. And then number 2, that shows you who's building the ambulances currently. They have a lot of business going on. And as I said, the service is out of Salina. The third is Professional Ambulance out of Comanche, Texas, and they're the company that we actually bought 3 of the last 4 trucks from. They met the specs, but as you can tell, $422,742, they're almost $50,000 above the second closest bidder. I can't come to you in good faith and ask for that purchase. They have changed hands since we last bid, and the last trucks we bought were $195,000 trucks each. These are in the neighborhood of these are $186,000. This process has been long in the fact that we've had to do some real evaluation of what we're going to do as an organization, because the cutaway chassis that we use no longer has the diesel engine available. So we had to evaluate gasoline engines or moving to a different platform, which is a pickup front that has a diesel engine in it and is several $1,000s higher chassis to chassis. And we couldn't, after looking at each one, driving each one, we actually made a trip to Dodge City where we drove one of the gasoline engines. It was what we expected. Ford County, Finney County are using them, and several other services across the area are using those Ford V10s or E450s. And we actually had a dealer bring one of the Type 1 pickup fronts by, and we had a crew and we took it out and drove it. So we talked with the crew. There's different driving features on them even. So as the service director, that concerns me with different driving characteristics of the vehicle, as well as putting gasoline engines into a diesel fleet. I think we can change some things organizationally and operationally and do some training make sure that those gasoline engines fit properly into the organization. So, as I said before, these are planned purchases. They have been identified in the first case since 2013 in the CIP. As presented to you in your packet, a copy of this year's budget CIP. And so my recommendation is to go with the Osage ambulance purchase. And that does get us the first ambulance with hopefully within 45 days. And the other one, it gets into the manufacturing process to be here within 300. And of course, we will pay for them as they come. And those dollars are in the CIP. So.
Dustin, questions?
I only had a few questions coming across them. Trade allowance is the lowest from Osage Ambulance, and I know that you alluded to the idea that because these idle so long that there's not a whole lot of people that want to touch them. The engine, the diesel engine is basically shot, and we've been having maybe issues with these being out of service.
Quite frankly, we've had two of these two trucks have been out of service more than they've been in service lately. I will tell you that when we get done with the truck, it wouldn't be the first truck to leave here on a flatbed. To answer your direct question about the trade-in value, we don't get anything for these. You know, there's just no market for them after the fact. They used to be able to sell them to third world countries. They can't do that anymore because of the HIPAA and the bloodborne pathogen stuff. There's just no market now. If we had the ability to tear them apart and sell them, you know, sell the engines and the transmission, and we had the chop shop type thing, we might get more. But quite frankly, there's just no market for them. It used to be, and you see, I think it's JD, I think there's one of the lease companies in town that's driving one that is an old ambulance. You used to see some of those, but even those are kind of going, because not only ours, but unless you get into a volunteer system that trade them off 75,000 miles, pretty much when an ambulance is traded off, it's done.
No, you know, as far as I feel on this, I think it's a good fiscally responsible move as far as helping EMS's budget with all the repairs over the years and things like that. As long as they're confident going to the gas fleet and your predecessor's confident that he can keep people from putting diesel into gas engines, then I think this is a good move for us.
Well, we are going to do everything we can do to stop that. It has happened before when we went the other way from gas to diesel. We've had, but, you know, we're going to mark them. We're going to do some things and some training to try and prevent that in any way we can. And quite frankly, you mentioned it, I'm bringing this to you because I think this is the most fiscally responsible thing. I could present you very easily a $225,000, $250,000 truck. I can't do that right in the current fiscal climate.
And frankly, guys, the thing that I like the most about it is the availability of that one so quick, especially since we've been having so many problems with these two. But that's all from me.
Okay, Butch?
Yeah, just a clarification, Carrie. You'll get one of these trucks this year and one of them next year, is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And then when would your next scheduled replacement be?
$2021.
Okay, and you'd have ample funds for that one?
It appears we're going to be very tight. That depends
Okay.
upon how
How the transfers are made?
transfers we go, and you know, that's one of the problems with us and Road and Bridge is, unfortunately, we buy expensive equipment. I mean, cardiac monitors we replace. Thank goodness we were able to get grants and for $300,000, but these are
I
expensive.
know as we look at the tight budgets, why we can't just necessarily take it all back in transfers. We have to make those transfers so we can keep up to date on capital.
Exactly. And so, yeah, that's really important that we continue to make those transfers and even possibly look at a way to put some other money into the CIP.
Sure.
Gary, I guess I'm in favor of replacing that 2003 because it's the oldest. What do you think on the 2010? That has that Duramax diesel Allison automatic. What do you think about
I
doing
think
that?
the budget was predicated, 2020's budget was predicated on service reduction of maintenance costs. I think that truck is going to continue to cause us problems even into 2020. And so we are going to especially need to replace that truck in 2020, or it's going to continue to cause us maintenance problems. I sent you a picture, although it wasn't that particular truck. It was actually one of our newer ones. I sent you a picture a week ago that I don't like seeing because that was a critical failure. And this gets us into the manufactured production schedule, and hopefully will eliminate going forward, when we get that truck in 250 to 300 days.
I guess I'm just thinking on that 2010, you could drop a brand new motor and transmission at a 100,000-mile warranty on that.
I think one of the things you have to also remember is you're looking at not only an engine and a transmission. You're looking at a vehicle, an electronics, highly technical vehicle that does a very specific job. I think you'd sink a lot of money into a vehicle that's probably wouldn't be the way I'd go fiscally with it.
Okay, any further questions?
Now, Carrie, when you buy an ambulance, what's your intention on how many years you can keep that ambulance in service?
Well, over the years, historically, we've had about 10 years out of a truck. And that also is 150 to 200,000 miles. And, quite frankly, we're going to KU a lot more recently. Last week, we had one day where we went to KU in Kansas City twice in one day and had a third opportunity and had to turn it down because we had 2 trucks on the highway. So those are longer transports than Wichita, Salina. So we're seeing more of those.
Sure.
And remember, those type of transports are what offset the amount of tax dollars that we put into the system.
Okay. Anything else, Dustin?
Dean, you got any idea on as far as replacing a transmission, an engine, the cost on something like that comparative to
20 to 25.
20 to 25,000? Okay.
That's a ballpark idea.
It's an interesting thought. I tell you what, I was kind of going to save this for my commissioner's report, but something that really came across my mind that really shocked me in the quarterly luncheon that we had with Grow Hayes was they did an economic drivers report in Ellis County. And much to my surprise, something I had never really thought about was how large of an economic driver our retirees are. Actually, almost 150, a little over 150 million more dollars from retirees than our second biggest industry, which is government. But that's because we have a large region university and not because of Ellis County or Hayes City or anything like that. But with that, it was definitely a surprise to me and got me thinking about our commitment to EMS and how important that would be to those that are getting up in age and how important it might be to their medical facilities, the investments that we make over the years. But I do like that idea. I like the idea of putting this truck in quick and getting that replaced.
Anything else?
No?
This time I'll ask for a motion.
I move the commission approve the purchase of 2 ambulances as quoted by Osage Ambulance for the total cost of $373,080.00.
I'll second the motion.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Carrie.
Any other questions for Health Services? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next up.
You point out, and we did the same with noxious weed, is stepping away on the medium-sized trucks, especially because of the DEF systems. Where they're idling and sitting, just like with our weed department, it's probably the smartest thing we did. That new truck is working out with a mid-range chassis just fine. So, before you tonight is an agenda item on discussion and then a possible motion on changing the rate structure at the landfill. This is based on using a volume pricing structure in the amount of tonnage that either a government agency or an individual hauler would bring to the landfill, and then also structuring it out over a couple of years where we've locked in that rate as long as the volume stays consistent, so that for a budgetary standpoint, more planning be done. And the commission, if you remember, you approved a similar thing that we did with Garden City when we upped our contract at the end of year 3, where we extended the 2 years on that contract plus 5 more. And that had been built into the contract we signed, where all the waste that we take from our transfer station down to Garden City. So I don't know if you want me to read some of the discussion to you, or you have specific questions, or how in detail you want to go on this with what our recommendations are to you. This is from staff and from our county administrator. We spent a lot of time. We've met with my equals and with Vern Reuter, our solid waste management person, with the city of Hayes, and discussed a lot of this and told them that we would in fact be bringing this forward to you this evening.
And you also had some discussion from what I guess you told me with city staff before this in months prior, correct?
Correct. The basic history is back in September of 17, there was a meeting with myself, with our solid waste person, and the 2 people from the city where we discussed this, and at the time they shared with us that they would probably be raising their rates in 18 as well. So it was going to be basically the same we would be doing it. And then in November of 17, we sent out to all our customers a detailed sheet with what our proposed rates that needed to come before your board to approve. And then in January, that came to the board, you approved it, and then in February of 18, we enacted it.
So this really wasn't a surprise to our 2 largest customers, was it?
It shouldn't have been. There was plenty of discussion back and forth, as well as emails, and it was posted at the landfill and then sent out to every customer through the regular mail service.
That's what I thought. I guess, Bill, if you want to talk about the rate change structure a little bit. I know my fellow commissioners have read that, but if you just kind of want to go through that a little bit.
We decided to set this based on tonnage. Now, the city of Hayes, for municipal waste, which is your regular household type trash, et cetera, they brought in 5,147 tons, which is 43%, little less than half of the total tonnage in municipal that comes in. And when you also look to the overall volume of the landfill, they're approximately 33% of just our total trash intake for all types of trash, et cetera. So we looked at using 300 tons per month as a base point, which would be 3,600 tons, which would give them some, if, you know, we go forward with this, it would give them a little flexibility if their trash pickup rate would come down some, and it also doesn't put it out of sight for anybody else that would be bringing in more municipal waste to try to reach that threshold, and we would also put them at that point should you choose to approve it. So what our suggestion or our recommendation, I would say, is that right now we're at $75 a ton, which is what the new rate was, that for this bulk discount, starting September of this year, we would back that down $3 a ton times, and if you push that out, $3 a ton times 5,100, that's $15,000 annualized cost savings that the city would pick up. And we would go from September 1st to the end of 2020. That would give them a guaranteed 16 months at that rate. Then, starting the following year in 2021, we would go up $1 a ton for a year. And then the following year in 2022, we would also go up another $1 a ton. So in 2022, they would be still $1 under what they are today. And then our recommendation, and this came out with our joint session with staff from both government agencies, that no one knows for sure where things are going to go. We've locked our trash rate in, but we also have a 3% escalation clause built into that. And we don't know what fuel's going to do. We will be renegotiating our hauling contract in a year, give or take. It'll be coming to you for getting the trash from our transfer station to Garden City. We have no idea where that cost is going to go. So we're proposing that we reevaluate in early 2022 for another 3 years so that we can actually look at it and say, okay, we're at 74. What is the right number for the following year, and then the 2 years after that? Is it 75? Is it 77? We won't know that at that. We'll have a better idea in 2022 than we will have today.
Okay. Butch, any questions for Bill?
Yeah, Bill, I think it's important we do try to work together with the city. We don't want to lose them for a customer. And if the city were to go away and not accept this proposal, that would have some ramifications against city trash users, would it not?
That's correct, it would.
We'd have to change some of our operations.
That's correct as well.
I know I've been, this week, I've been hauling a lot of rock and dirt out to the landfill, and I just go in there and I dump it out and leave. There's no cost to me at all.
Correct.
And I got a pile of branches I'm going to haul out there. So some of that could change.
It would have to
If indeed
change.
we lost the city as a
Correct.
customer.
Because right now, the city supplements, as an example, for trees, for residents, they supplement us $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But annualized, we've shared all these figures with the city, but we run a deficit of trees of $7,200 or $7,626 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would definitely have to change if we no longer had them as a true customer, and that's part of the same thing with the citywide cleanup. We don't charge them for construction and demolition, or as we call it, the C&D waste during that time period. They just pay for the municipal waste because that has to get hauled. But that's another roughly $5,000 that we let them dump for free. So you're $12,000, $13,000 right there that they're getting as a somewhat of a discount that it's not shown because it's just not charged.
Well, not counting from an ice storm, everybody that hauls out
Correct.
truckloads and truckloads of trees for free, that,
We took in 2016, we took in 2,000 plus truckloads of trees from the city for free.
I was 4 of those.
yeah, that was a donation on our part, and we still had to do everything to get rid of it.
We have to manage it, we have to burn it, we have to take
Exactly.
care of the ash.
Yep,
It's very time consuming for the guys out there because you can't just, and the fire chief is here, he can attest, we definitely don't want that getting away, so it's got to be monitored. And, we run a very, limited staff out there as well.
understand very well. Thank you. Not even including the $1 million worth of equipment we have sitting out there too, with the trash compactor and the big cat loader and all that stuff, and dozer and backhoe and grader and scraper, and $1 million wouldn't even cover it anyway, but anyway. Dustin, questions from you? I think, Butch, was you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Sorry.
Can I finish Butch's question? Just one other thing that, the transfer station that they've been talking about also is very specific in the types of waste that they do take, and there's specific things they don't take. So that would probably on the residents, like if you have a large chair or a couch, they don't take that, we do. So that will be, either if the city decides to take that, they'll be bringing it to us as municipal waste, or the residents will also have to. They don't take any trees. They have no outside services. They don't provide anything. We provide e-waste for all the electronics. We provide the household hazardous waste, which is somewhat of a break-even or less proposition, but again, it's a service that we provide to the community so that if somebody has something, whether it be paint, or we've taken a variety of things in there, chemicals, et cetera, that we provide that service as part of our overall operation.
Any questions, Dustin?
Yeah, just a couple. You said we had an agreement of some type where we're taking $1,000 a month from the city of Hayes in order to allow their
Correct.
citizens.
That was 600, and that was really costing us, and so we renegotiated that, I believe 2 years ago, and they upped it to 1,000. But even with that, we're still losing 7,000 because of the volume of trees that come in.
Is that a year-by-year agreement that we work with them, or?
It's an informal written agreement. It's not, again, we've been trying to work with them by not nitpicking, they've known about this, that the trees are costing us more money. When we agreed to 1,000, we knew it was going to help, but it was still going to put us on that particular aspect of the landfill operation. It was a negative.
Okay.
But sometimes you have to balance your business, and that's what the landfill is. It's a business.
Right.
So you make a lot over here and you make a little over here. You can't make the same percentages on every type of thing that we take in.
That brings me to my next question. You say we're basically the only place in Ellis County to take this, you call it demolition material to.
Correct.
What's our tonnage rate on demolition material?
$35 a ton.
Okay, and that's something that, if we lost a lot of revenue in one place, we might have to make up in another place as far as running the business.
That's possible, correct. And we see that's what the C&D is, what we direct bury out there.
Okay, yeah, and it's what we had purchased land to
Correct.
expand because of that. Okay. The only issue I think I have right now with this is that it's not contractual. This is just a tonnage rate for a good customer, essentially. If you're a good enough customer to be able to bring us 300 tons a month, then we're willing to give you this rate. Are we talking about any kind of contract with any customer that may think they can get to this kind of tonnage, or is it just if you get to this tonnage, now your rate goes down.
If you reach that threshold, your rate would go down accordingly, because if you went lower than the threshold, then your rate would go back up. And I mean, if I understand correctly, by you voting to, if you should approve this, you're locking in the contract. We can't change it.
Right.
So you're setting, just like you did back in January of 18, where you set the new rate. You set it $75 a ton. Neither myself or Mr. Reuter can make it $74 a ton, nor can we make it 77.
Right.
We're following, you have set the bar, and we have to follow what you have set.
Commissioner, I think to try and further address your question, that was why we went with a monthly rate rather than an annual tonnage amount, because basically we bill monthly, and so we would know whether a particular customer met that rate as long as it's a monthly rate. If it were an annual rate, you could get into a situation where you'd have to recoup money or refund money or so forth. So when Mr. Reuter and I were talking about it, that's why we came to the monthly amount.
Great. So we would know every month if they met the tonnage goal, and if they did, they would get the reduced rate.
Right, for whatever customer. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Like the report that you will see at the third commission meeting, which we will put to the administrator for next Monday, that report is a snapshot of the overall operation. That's available now with the new software package. That's available instantaneously. So come the first of the month, Mr. Reuter can go on, push a button, and he can say, these people, before we do anything else, these people brought 300 tons in, okay? And then accordingly, we can bill them out at the lower rate, or if they fell under that, if they only brought 200 tons, we could raise it back to, which again, with the city, based on their volume, I don't think that they'll ever fall back under it. And that's why we tried to build in for them a little bit of, well, actually a lot of wiggle room from what they actually bring in. The 5,000, 5,100 now down to 36, they would have to take a tremendous, decrease in trash, which I don't really see happening. But we didn't want to get it so tight for the city of Hayes that, okay, it's 5,100 and so we made it 5,000 and they came in at 4,900, as the administrator pointed out, at the end of a whole year, and say, oh, you lose. That's not, we don't want to do that. That's not, so we wanted to make it, and we also wanted to make it attainable should another carrier go out and be more aggressive, or more people, more homes get built, whatever. And in the country, especially where you've got private haulers out there, that if they start bringing in more municipal waste, they have the opportunity to pick up a couple of bucks a ton.
Yeah, that's great. I actually do. I really like the idea that we're making possibly an attainable number for another customer, something to reach for that would increase our tonnage. I got an opportunity to go out to the landfill and run around with Vern to see exactly what we did out there. As has been discussed, this is a business out there. This is not taxpayer money that goes to running this at all. So none of the things that you see out there are from your property taxes. This is just the work that we do at a profitability, and I think Vern, from all I've heard, Vern, you're doing a great job, and I think that even some of the stories that I've heard in passing of Vern taking time around, say, Thanksgiving to run out there to let the City of Hayes trucks get emptied so that the guys can get out early in the morning, things like that. We want that business to be a good business for them to work with as well, and so I just wanted to hit on that. I like the way it's set up. I think if we're on a month-by-month basis, this will be good for us. I think that my fellow commissioners have alluded to the things that maybe we do out there that aren't well appreciated, but I will echo with Butch that I think whatever's good for Ellis County is good for the city of Hayes and vice versa. And if staff thinks that we can make this work at this tonnage amount, I'm happy to give them the deal on it.
Bill, when did the landfill open out there, do you know? Any idea?
As a transfer station, 94, I believe, was when it went from a direct burial for what they would call a subtitle D, that we had to convert. We had a choice of either digging basically a gigantic pit and then putting a large plastic liner in, which would have been extremely costly at the time and no way of knowing the volume. And we also, the land space, we only got, much, now we have a much larger area. So at that time, the decision was made to go with the transfer station, where we only bury the construction and demolition, the rock and those type of things. And then we, again, have a third party haul the trash from the transfer station to Garden City.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No, have none.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the commission approve the bulk rate for anyone bringing in more than 300 tons per month of municipal waste at $72 per ton from September 1st, 2019 until the end of 2020, $73 per ton for 2021, and $74 per ton for 2022.
I second that.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Bill, don't go anywhere. Your next item, filling 2 vacant positions.
The action item before you tonight is we've had 2 recent resignations, and both people are already gone because of the delay between the last commission meeting and now. So, and then just to interject, I've had another resignation that was submitted Monday of this past week, a week ago today. So their last day will be the end of this week in the truck driver position. And there's a possible another one that I was alluded to before this afternoon. So we're looking to get permission to fill the vacant positions, as it says, to fill the 2 vacant positions recently created by resignations. We definitely have 3. And so I don't know, and then there may be another. So I just want you to be enlightened to that and then see what direction.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. Public Works is one of our largest is certainly our largest department in terms of expenditure, but one of our largest in terms of staffing. We tend to have turnover in Public Works for various reasons, not the least of which is that it is the type of work where we are most likely to directly compete with the private sector. Many of the skills, mechanic skills, heavy equipment operation, truck driving, are directly transferable to other businesses in this town in the way that staff in the clerk's office, for example, is not a one-for-one transferable skill. So it not only are there a lot of people out there, but they also tend to have a lot of turnover. And of course, the reason that we're in front of you this evening is because the commission has been reticent to let staff just go out and fill vacancies. You want to maintain a tight hold on filling vacancies in lieu of our fiscal situation, and I can certainly appreciate that. But as the director was alluding to, having had a 3rd vacancy now and a rumored potential 4th vacancy, I might suggest to the commission an alternate motion in lieu of what you have before you tonight, that perhaps you could allow the director to fill any vacancies that occur, say, over the next 6 months, and then come back and do a check-in with you at that point in time, or something to that effect. I will remind you that in the budget for 2020, there are 2 positions being held vacant for the entire year as a financial maneuver. So these positions before you tonight are not those positions. There are still 2 being held vacant above and beyond this request. So I think, just trying to have Bill not come in front of you every Monday for another one of these. Maybe if you gave some flexibility, that might be a good thing.
That'd be fine with me.
Yeah, me too.
You too?
I think so. Yeah, I think we have a bit of a hiring crisis out there. Bill, I don't know how you feel about the Evergreen study that was supposed to get your guys to minimum out there, but it sounds like we're getting beat up by the private sector in a hot economy. So, I would definitely be willing to do a 6-month leniency to let him fill as he can. That way he's not waiting on Monday meetings and trying to find good applicants all the time.
That sounded like a motion. We'd like to go ahead and clarify
Yeah,
that.
I can. I move that the commission approve the Public Works Director to hire for any open positions in the next 6 months in the Road and Bridge Division.
I'll second that motion.
And that would be without coming before the commission to ask.
Yeah.
I would recommend that, because the other one is not in the Road and Bridge Division, so then I got to come back. I would suggest Public Works.
In Public Works, okay.
In the Public Works Department, because that's how we're.
Let me amend. I move that the commission approve the Public Works Director to hire for any open position in the Public Works Division over the next 6 months.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Is there any other things I could talk to you about tonight? Have any questions on any? The roads are drying out, which unfortunately we're entering a drought cycle. It was posted the other day. I caught up a little bit on some emails being gone last week. And we are definitely in the yellow. And if we don't get some rain, it makes it even tougher. We're doing our best, but now it's time we have to then start hauling water to fix roads.
Had we finished that project on the box culvert by the Goodman Energy Center? Did that?
The staff deserves a job well done on that. They had that done and open in 4 days.
Very good.
Yep, they did a good job up there. Didn't take
And
long.
I think some of the people up there have called, and I've gotten some thank yous for getting that done. It's now a much safer road, and then just knock on wood, as they say, let's hope something comes through with the work the administrator, I and a few others tried to do with the potential build grant, but we won't know for a number of months as of right now.
Yep.
Definitely.
Thanks, Bill. Move on to the county administrator report. Philip Smith Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no report this evening.
County commission report.
Yeah.
Schleier.
Yes, fellow commissioners, I attended the Northwest Kansas Planning and Development Commission meeting last week, I believe it was. And the board voted that for any of the counties who don't pay their full dues, that they will not have any voting rights on the board. In fact, one of the members there was just very upset at Ellis County and thought for sure in a $21 million budget we could come up with another $16,000 for them. I assured him we couldn't, or they'd get it. And I did have a brief discussion with Phil just the other day. And I told Phil before we pay those dues next year, I want us to have a discussion over if we should pay them based on the fact we won't be voting. And if we're not voting on anything up there, I'm not going to be attending any meetings either.
Very well put. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all.
Dustin?
Just a few things to report on. I did attend Leadership Kansas out in Colby and Goodland. It was nice to see another couple Northwest Kansas communities and the type of things they were doing. We had discussions on value-added farming, something that we're seeing in the county adjacent to us with hemp production, which is neat. We got to see a plant where they added 40 positions out in Goodland just for farming crop in order to go straight from the farmer to the end consumer, which was neat and something I think that we need to look forward and look for, especially in our economic development plan for jobs. We also talked about their population decline, and I opened up an interesting discussion on Wichita State study that showed essentially our county is the only county in all of western Kansas with potential population growth over the next 20 years. We're based on their projections scheduled to grow about 20%, and almost all of western Kansas will likely decline in population. The discussion went down to our community's intense investment in healthcare and how we will attract retirees, and that was something that like I said, I was going to allude to in my report, but retiree earnings in Ellis County are $375,425,000. The next biggest industry in all of Ellis County is government at $183 million. So our retirees are the nice thing about the retirees is there's very few not as many that are at risk, and they're good retirees to bring in. They're good citizens, and so as far as our commitment in the future to our EMS, I think that's our role here, but also to be good stewards to one of the big drivers that brings them here, which is Hayes Med Center. We also had I also attended the Grow Hayes quarterly luncheon where we did this discussion on Ellis County. I'd be happy to share with you guys what we got there if you haven't received it yet, but some real interesting information, and then some things that seem pretty obvious, but looking at government, it's our large regent university, like I said, that is a big driver of our economy. So if we can, foster those relationships, I think that's great from a governance standpoint for us. And then this morning I attended the Brief Space one-year reunion. Is another thing that Grow Hayes is actually housed out of the Brief Space, is a Dane G. Hansen grant that they got to do a co-working space, and it is a co-working day or co-working week, I believe. Can I get a little help in the back on that? It's co-working day. So anybody who might have a business where they would like to have a place to leave their home and go do business, it's free this week, I believe, if you want to go in there and check it out. Beautiful facilities, 1 gig internet, the type of thing that, I believe the cost of the investment, you could probably drink back in coffee, and they make pretty good coffee there. I can attest to that. So, but also the beauty of these co-working spaces is getting different people from different industries with different ideas together in the same room and potentially creating new business and new ideas. And so it was nice to see that on their one-year reunion, and I hope that people consider that if they have the type of position where they can utilize that space. The only other thing that I had that I pulled from our Leadership Kansas session was some ideas of tax abatements to incentivize lower cost housing. And it's something that I'll dive into more, maybe report on in the future, but it seems to be something that can be of success. And so these tax abatements typically will slowly put in the property tax on a property, where in the first year the person or that builds the house or buys the house at certain dollar amount on a new build would only pay 10% of their property tax, clear up to 10 years where they start paying their full property value, tax value. So that's all I have for you.
Thank you. I guess mine was just, I guess, pretty boring. I guess we had one meeting on you talked about hemp, how some of the regulations are going to change again as they're getting their feet wet in the state of Kansas, and that'll be revised again probably over the next 6 months again. And happy to report the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management, Friday introduced 5,000 new regs, either old ones they had and new ones they have introduced to put in place in Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Iowa, and Nebraska. That'll go into effect January 1, so that's going to change the farming industry. It's going to really change the oil industry again. So they're putting an office out in Colorado now to help regulate that. I guess they thought we didn't have enough regulations, so they introduced 5,000 new ones and old ones that they rewrote. So that's where that's headed to. That's all I have. Nothing else from anyone. We will adjourn at 5:56. Thank you all for coming.